Before we begin this operation, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and hit that notification bell. We read every comment. Let us know in the comments below what city or country you're watching from. Now, prepare for deployment. The city of Cairo, in 1975, was a tapestry woven from 3 threads: ancient dust, paranoid suspicion, and the fragile, unconvincing silk of a new peace. The 73 war was a fresh scar, and the Camp David Accords were still a distant mirage. The cold peace between Egypt and Israel was a fiction maintained by diplomats. On the streets, it was a ceasefire of held breaths. Into this paradox walked Youssef Kabani. To the merchants of the Khan el-Khalili Bazaar, Youssef was an institution, a fixture as permanent as the minaret of Al-Hussein. He was a Coptic Christian, a convenient minority, which afforded him a certain neutrality in the city's churning politics. He was a man of impeccable taste and melancholic disposition, a dealer in rare textiles and antiquities. His shop, a deep, narrow cave smelling of sandalwood and aged linen, was a quiet eddy in the bazaar's human river. Youssef Kabani, however, was a carefully constructed ghost. He was born Elias Nivon in Haifa. He was a Katsa, a field officer for Mossad. For 8 years, Elias had lived as Youssef. His Coptic identity was a masterpiece of maskirovka, built from a borrowed name from a cemetery in Alexandria, a fabricated lineage, and a genuine scholarly love for the very artifacts he sold. His life was a long-form performance. He did not just play Youssef, he was Youssef. He prayed with his Coptic neighbors, shared their fasts, and nursed a quiet, believable sorrow over a fictional wife lost to illness years prior. His connection to Tel Aviv was not a radio. It was the weave itself. On the 3rd Tuesday of the month, a shipment of textiles arrived from a supplier in Brussels. This supplier was a Mossad front. The signal was never in a message, it was in the material. A perfect weave meant all is well, maintain cover. A single thread flaw meant prepare for contact. A cross-weave error meant exfiltrate immediately. That Tuesday, Elias ran his thumb over a bolt of deep indigo silk. He felt it before he saw it. A tiny, deliberate knot, hard as a seed. A tell. A signal for a pigisha, a face-to-face meeting. This was new. In 8 years, it had never been a pigisha. His handler, Ronan, would be at the Café El Fishawi, the sprawling mirrored labyrinth where time and smoke blurred. Elias didn't change his routine. He closed his shop at the usual hour, made his way through the familiar press of bodies, and took his usual table in the back. Ronan was already there, disguised as a loud, obnoxious German tourist, complete with a terrible accent and a camera he didn't know how to use. It was a brilliant, insulting cover. Ronan ordered 2 sweet teas, his eyes scanning the mirrors, which allowed him to see every entrance. "The linens in this country are terrible, yeah?" Ronan boomed, sliding a folded newspaper across the table. "One must know where to look, Herr Schmidt," Elias replied, his voice the velvet baritone of Youssef. He picked up the paper. The conversation that followed was about thread counts, dyes, and the price of cotton. But the words Ronan spoke were a coded overlay. The dye, it has run. A bad batch, 90 pieces. Spoiled. Elias felt his blood cool. 90 pieces. The factory owner, Ronan continued, a man named Fawzi. He wants to burn the entire batch. He believes they are an insult. Elias understood. 90 captives, not pieces. Nefashot, souls, held by a radical Fawzi. And they were going to be eliminated. "Where is this factory?" Elias asked, his voice unchanged. Ronan tapped the newspaper. "In the old city, Al-Darb al-Amar, the Red Road. It is a fortress. The local police will not go near it." He leaned in, the jovial mask slipping for a fraction of a second. "Elias, this is not a request from Tel Aviv. This is a nightmare. 90 archaeological students on a supervised post-war cultural exchange, an olive branch, and they were taken from their buses 2 days ago. Sadat's government is denying it, and the group that took them, the Sons of the Nile, have threatened to dispose of them if anyone tries to intervene." Elias folded the newspaper. The political calculus was instantly, brutally clear. A formal Israeli rescue operation was impossible. It would shatter the ceasefire, destroy Sadat's credibility, and plunge the region back into war. Sadat's own Mukhabarat, General Intelligence Directorate, couldn't storm the compound of a rogue Egyptian paramilitary faction without triggering a civil conflict. The 90 students were, in effect, already ghosts. Tel Aviv has no assets, Ronan whispered, his jovialty gone. They cannot move. The army cannot move. The diplomats cannot move. You are the only man in the city. Elias looked into the mirror at his own reflection. The face of Youssef Kabani stared back, impassive, sad. And what does Tel Aviv expect me to do, Ronan? Walk in and ask for them? They expect nothing, Ronan said, standing up and becoming Herr Schmidt again. They have written them off. This is not an official operation. It is a ghost's errand. If you are caught, you are a textile merchant. Israel knows nothing. He threw a few coins on the table. The world believes they are lost in the desert. In 2 days, the sons of the Nile will make it permanent. Auf Wiedersehen. Ronan blended into the crowd and was gone. Elias sat for a long time, the sweet tea turning bitter on his tongue. He was alone. 90 souls were trapped in a fortress in the most dangerous part of Cairo, and he, a merchant of silk, was their only hope. He was Israel's hidden guardian, and his vigil had just begun. The district of Al-Darb al-Amar was not just a place. It was a medieval memory, a labyrinth of unpaved alleys, collapsing Mamluk-era tenements and workshops where men still hammered brass and copper as they had 500 years before. The air was thick with the smoke of tanneries, the coppery tang of butcher stalls, and the sour scent of desperation. This was a no-go zone, ruled by clan law and forgotten by the central government. And at its heart sat the Wakala, the citadel. A 16th-century Ottoman caravanserai, it was a massive 2-story stone compound built around a central courtyard. Its original purpose was to protect merchant caravans from desert bandits. Its current purpose was to keep the world out. This was the factory General Fawzi, leader of the Sons of the Nile, called home. Elias Neven, in the guise of Youssef Kabani, could not approach it. Youssef was a man of the refined Khan el-Khalili. He had no business here. To be seen was to be remembered, and to be remembered was to be dead. Elias activated a different cover, one he had used only twice before. He became Father Mikhail, a humble Coptic Abuna, priest from Shubra, collecting alms for the poor. The black robes, the simple wooden cross, and the slight shuffling gait rendered him invisible. In a city of symbols, a priest was just another part of the landscape. For 3 days, Father Mikhail walked the perimeter of Al-Darb al-Amar. He learned the rhythms of the citadel from a distance. He sat in a small, filthy awa, coffee shop, across the street, nursing a single glass of tea for hours. He charted the guards. They were not soldiers, they were zealots. The Sons of the Nile were a forgotten Nasserist faction, men who believed Sadat's peace was a betrayal of Egypt's honor. Their leader, General Fawzi, was a man cut from that same cloth, a bitter, charismatic ex-officer put out to pasture. These men weren't professionals. They were romantics, which made them predictable, but also infinitely more dangerous. Elias sketched the compound's layout in his mind. One main gate, fortified with steel. 2 smaller secondary entrances, likely blocked. The walls were thick stone. He saw snipers on the roof, but they were sloppy. They smoked, they talked, they looked at the street, not at the rooftops across from them. His first break came on the 2nd day. He needed eyes inside. He followed a small boy, no older than 10, who made a daily delivery of bread and vegetables to the main gate. The boy, Ali, was thin and quick, his eyes old. Elias accidentally dropped a small coin near him. When Ali picked it up, Elias, as Father Mikhail, blessed him. He met the boy again the next day, in an alley 2 streets away. He didn't offer money, he offered a trade. He pulled out a small, beautifully crafted Swiss pocket knife. "The men in the Wakala," Elias whispered, his Coptic accent thick. "They are guests of the general." "They are prisoners," Ali spat, his eyes on the knife. "Foreigners. They are loud." "Loud? How?" "At night. They sing sad songs. The general gets angry. Elias's heart clenched. Singing, Hatikva. They were keeping their spirits up. I need to know how many, Elias said, and where they are kept, and how many guards are inside the courtyard. That is a dangerous question, Abuna. God protects those who help his children, Elias said, pressing the knife into the boy's hand. Count the guards, count the prisoners. Tell me what you see, for God. The next day, Ali was waiting. He was shaking. 90, he said, the word a gasp. Maybe more. They are in the old stables, on the ground floor. It is bad, Abuna. They are sick. There are at least 30 guards inside. Always 30. They have machine guns, at the gate, and in the courtyard. 30 guards, 90 captives. One entrance. Elias gave the boy a small gold cross. Go. Forget my face. Never speak of this. Elias retreated to his apartment above the textile shop. He had the what and the where. He now needed the how. A frontal assault was suicide. Even if he had a Sayeret Matkal unit, they'd never get in, and the captives would be executed in the first minute. He stared at the map of Cairo he had tacked to his wall, hidden behind a heavy Persian rug. The Wakala, the river, the airport. All impossible. The problem, he realized, was not the 90 captives. The problem was General Fawzi. Fawzi was the lock. He didn't want money. If he did, he would have made a public demand. He wanted war. He was trying to provoke Israel. He wanted a raid. An Israeli attack on Egyptian soil would collapse the peace process, discredit Sadat, and return men like Fawzi to power. Elias was staring at a human bomb, and the man holding the detonator was praying for someone to try and defuse it. He couldn't disarm the bomb. He couldn't move the captives. Therefore, he concluded, he must move the bomb maker. He had to find a way to make General Fawzi want to give up his prize. And to do that, Youssef Kabani would have to meet the one man in Cairo more dangerous than Fawzi himself. Colonel Amr Shafik of the Mukhabarat was a different kind of predator than General Fawzi. Where Fawzi was a blunt instrument of ideology, Shafik was a scalpel of surgical precision. He operated from a sterile office in the Lazogli Square headquarters, a man who believed in files, surveillance, and the slow, patient application of pressure. He was Egypt's chief counterintelligence officer, and he was the shadow that haunted every foreign national in Cairo. Youssef Kabani, the quiet Coptic merchant, was on Shafik's protected list, not as a spy, but as an asset. Youssef, with his access to the wealthy and the foreign, was a consummate listener. He was a friend of the Mukhabarat, providing occasional harmless gossip about European ambassadors or the black market prices of Coptic icons. Elias had cultivated this relationship for years. It was his iron dome, his protection. Now, he was going to set it on fire. Elias requested a meeting. This was not unusual. Youssef often helped the colonel's wife acquire special fabrics from Paris. He was shown into Shafik's office. It was modern, clean, and cold. Shafik sat behind a large, empty desk. He was a thin man with kind eyes that saw everything. Youssef, my friend. Shafik smiled, offering a cigarette. You are a balm for my weary soul. What treasure do you have for me today? More silks? Something more solid, Colonel, Elias said, accepting the cigarette. He sat, arranging his features into a mask of calculated greed. This was the performance of his life. I have come across an opportunity, a significant one, but it involves a man I do not trust. Shafik leaned back, the smile fading. Go on. A consortium. Swiss, they say. They are interested in large-scale antiquities. Not a piece here, a piece there. An entire collection. Shafik's eyes narrowed. This is smuggling, Youssef. A dirty business, not like your beautiful textiles. It is, Colonel, but the commission, it is generational. They want something specific. They want the Fawzi collection. The name hung in the air. Shafik's posture did not change, but the temperature in the room dropped. General Fawzi? The old warrior in Al-Darb al-Amar? I was not aware he was a connoisseur. He is not, Elias said, leaning forward. He is a dragon. He is sitting on a treasure he does not understand, and it is making my partners nervous. They wish to acquire it, but they fear Fawzi is unstable. They fear he might break the merchandise. Shafiq's mind was moving quickly. Elias could see the calculations. A Swiss consortium, a known euphemism for a foreign intelligence service, was interested in something Fawzi had. Break the merchandise. The students. And why? Shafiq said softly. Do you come to me to confess your smuggling plans? I come to you as a patriot, Elias lied, placing a hand on his heart. Fawzi is a problem. He holds a prize that the world wants. He is a fool who thinks he holds a weapon when he really holds a check. My partners, they will pay. A lot. But they will not deal with a madman. They need a broker, a man of stability, a man of influence. You want me to broker a smuggling deal? Shafiq asked, amused. I want you to be the guarantor. Elias corrected him. Fawzi is a relic. He wants to refight a war that is over. You, Colonel, you are the new Egypt. You understand that true power is not in holding a fortress, but in opening a bank account. Elias was offering Shafiq three things: a solution to the Fawzi problem, which was a domestic headache for Sadat, a massive, untraceable bribe, the commission, and most importantly, a victory over a rival. These students, Shafiq said, dropping the pretense. These antiquities. What is the price? My partners are authorized to pay $10 million, half for Fawzi for his collection, and half for the brokerage fee to ensure smooth transit to Alexandria. $5 million. For Shafiq. The colonel stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. He was being offered a way to make the 90 students disappear, avoid an international incident, neutralize a domestic rival, and become incredibly wealthy, all at once. The Swiss would get the students, Israel would be placated, and Egypt's honor would be intact. This is a delicate operation, Youssef, Shafiq said, turning back. This General Fawzi, he is a man of pride. He will not sell his honor to a Coptic merchant. He will not, Elias agreed. He will sell it to you, the hero of the Mukhabarat who is rescuing him from his own folly. You will offer him safe passage to Libya and $5 million for his retirement. You will tell him you are taking the problem off his hands for the good of Egypt. And you, Youssef, what do you get? My commission, Colonel. Elias smiled. The picture of a greedy merchant, and the gratitude of my Swiss partners, and of course your continued protection. Shafiq stared at him, a long analytical gaze. He saw a man, Youssef Kabani, risking everything for a massive payday. It was a motivation he understood. You will not be at the exchange, Youssef, Shafiq said, his voice final. You will be in your shop. This is state business now. You will create the accounts in Zurich. I will handle General Fawzi. Of course, Colonel, Elias said, bowing his head. I am just a humble merchant. You are the architect. Elias walked out of the Lazogli headquarters, the midday sun striking him like a physical blow. He was trembling, but not from fear. From the sheer, terrifying audacity of what he had just done. He had just set the Mukhabarat against the sons of the Nile. He had turned the two arms of the Egyptian state against each other, with 90 Israeli lives as the prize. General Fawzi believed he was a pharaoh in waiting. In reality, he was a prisoner in his own fortress. His sons of the Nile were more of a street gang than an army, and his compound in Al-Darb al-Ahmar was a cage. He had captured the 90 Israeli students in a fit of ideological rage, believing it would be his Suez Canal, his great patriotic act that would galvanize the nation against Sadat's cowardice. Instead, it had brought him silence. The government had ignored him, the press had been muzzled, and the Israelis, who he prayed would attack, had done nothing. He was a man holding a lit stick of dynamite, and the fuse was burning down to his fingers. It was into this paranoid state that Colonel Shafiq made his entrance. Shafiq did not come in force. He came as Youssef had advised, as a brother. He arrived at the Wakala in a single, unmarked black Mercedes, with only 2 bodyguards. He requested a meeting, officer to officer. ES had set the chessboard. Shafiq was now playing the piece. Fawzi received him in his office, a cavernous room that had once been the caravanserai's main stable, now draped in faded military banners. Fawzi was a large man, all charisma and fury, his uniform festooned with medals he had awarded himself. "Colonel Shafik," Fawzi boomed, "you honor my humble headquarters. Have you come to arrest me, or to join the revolution?" "I have come to save you, General," Shafik said quietly, his voice cutting through Fawzi's bluster. Shafik's approach was a masterpiece of psychological manipulation fed to him by Yusef's script. He didn't threaten. He commiserated. "The president, Sadat, he does not understand you, General. He does not understand true Egyptian honor, but he is a politician, and you have created a political problem." "I have created a victory," Fawzi roared. "You have," Shafik agreed disarmingly. "And it is this victory that is killing you. You have captured the snake, General. Now you cannot let it go, and it is poisoning you. Your men are restless, your supplies are low, and the Mukhabarat, my less subtle colleagues, are drawing up plans for this compound. Plans that involve tanks and fire." Fawzi's face darkened. "You threaten me. I warn you, as a brother officer, Sadat will not tolerate a rival king. He will wipe this place from the map, kill you, and blame Israel for the deaths of the students. He will make you a martyr, yes, but a failed one, a footnote." The truth of this hit Fawzi like a physical blow. It was exactly what a paranoid, self-important man would fear most. Not death, but irrelevance. What do you propose?" Fawzi stammered. Shafik leaned in. "I have connections, a third party. They are not Israelis. They are not Egyptians. They are neutral. They see the value in your collection. They see these students as leverage, assets they can use against the Jews themselves. Who? It does not matter. What matters is that they will pay for the assets, and they will pay for you." Shafik laid out the plan. $5 million deposited in a Libyan bank. Safe passage to Tripoli, where his friend, Colonel Gaddafi, would welcome a patriot like Fawzi with open arms. He would be a hero in exile, not a corpse in Cairo. "And the students?" Fawzi asked, his greed warring with his pride. "The third party will take them. They will be smuggled out, taken to Alexandria, and transferred to a ship. They will become someone else's problem. And you will be rich, and more importantly, alive." Fawzi was a zealot, but he was not a fool. He saw the walls closing in. He saw the appeal of a luxurious exile funded by his enemies. It was a way to declare victory and retreat. "And you, Shafik?" Fawzi asked, suspicious. "What is your role in this? The Mukhabarat's broker?" "My role," Shafik said, adopting the lie Elias had given him, "is to solve the president's problem. He wants this situation gone. He doesn't care how. This is how. I will personally guarantee your exit. I will personally oversee the transfer for the good of Egypt." Fawzi paced the room. It was an escape. It was money. It was a win. "You will arrange the bank transfer first," Fawzi declared. "I see the money. Then you get the merchandise." "Done," Shafik agreed. The Mukhabarat colonel left the compound. The first phase was complete. Fawzi was no longer a warlord. He was a seller. Meanwhile, Elias, as Yusef, was orchestrating the other half of the plan, the logistics of the extraction. He couldn't move 90 people through the streets of Cairo. He couldn't put them on a plane. But Cairo had a highway, wide and ancient, that no one watched. The Nile. As Yusef Kabani, he made a grand, conspicuous purchase. He acquired 2 massive, dilapidated river barges, the kind used for hauling stone and cotton. He let it be known in the bazaar that he was shipping a priceless, massive Coptic altar, a gift to a fictional monastery in Greece via Alexandria. He hired dozens of carpenters and laborers to work on the barges at a private dock. They were building a massive, reinforced, ventilated false bottom beneath the decks. To the world, it looked like a merchant's folly. To Elias, it was the Ark. The $5 million for General Fawzi and the $5 million for Colonel Shafik was not a metaphor. It was a logistical nightmare. Mossad did not, as a rule, wire transfer $10 million into the accounts of its enemies. But this was an operation of checkbooks, not bullets. The Mossad's financial warfare division, Safir, was brought online. From a nondescript office in Tel Aviv, a different kind of Katza went to work. First, the money. It was pulled from a dozen black budgets, funds allocated for arms deals, propaganda, and developmental aid. This money was already clean, sitting in legitimate-looking corporate accounts in Panama, Liechtenstein, and Hong Kong. The problem was Youssef Kabani. Youssef was a textile merchant. He could not suddenly materialize as an international financier. Elias, in his role as Youssef, had to create a legend. He received a series of urgent telegrams at his shop, making him visibly flustered. He confided in a few of the other merchants, and more importantly, in one of Shafiq's known informants, that he was having family problems in Switzerland. A black sheep uncle had died and left him a complicated inheritance. This provided the cover for Youssef to make a sudden, panicked trip to the Swiss credit bank in downtown Cairo. He was not a spy. He was a man in over his head. The Swiss consortium, Elias's invention, was given a name: Helvetic Maritime Salvage, S.A. Safir's agents in Geneva had created the shell corporation 48 hours earlier. It had a brass plaque, a functioning phone number, which routed to a Mossad safehouse, and a bank account. The first transfer was the test. $5 million routed from Panama, through a clearinghouse in New York and into the new Helvetic account in Zurich. From there, it was transferred to a numbered account specified by Colonel Shafiq. The account was not in his name, of course. It was for the Egyptian Widows and Orphans Fund, a known Mukhabarat slush fund. The transfer was instant. Shafiq, checking from his own secure line, confirmed the commission had been paid. The first hook was set. The second transfer was more complex. General Fawzi wanted his money in Libya. This was a state sponsor of terror to state sponsor of terror transaction. Safir's agents had to route the $5 million back out of Switzerland, convert it to French francs, bounce it through a bank in Beirut, a chaotic masterpiece of plausible deniability, and finally deposit it in the Libyan Arab Foreign Bank in Tripoli under the name Mr. F.H. al-Masri. The moment the transfer was confirmed, General Fawzi was a changed man. He was no longer a revolutionary. He was a retired millionaire. His entire demeanor shifted. The Sons of the Nile were told they were victorious and were being relocated to Libya to build a new glorious front. The 90 captives, once his great weapon, were now just a bulky piece of luggage he had to check before his flight. Elias received the signal from Shafiq. Not a phone call, but a gift. A box of expensive Cuban cigars was delivered to his shop. The brokerage fee was accepted. The deal was on. The transfer was scheduled for the following night, under the guise of a prisoner relocation organized by the Mukhabarat. While the colonels and generals moved money, Youssef Kabani moved wood. The two barges, moored at a dilapidated private dock south of the city, were swarming with workers. Elias, as Youssef, was a whirlwind of frantic energy, playing the part of a nervous merchant terrified his precious cargo would be damaged. The cargo was the altar of Saint Mark, a fictional antiquity Elias had discovered. He had even paid a master forger in his network to create provenance documents, shipping manifests, and export licenses, which Colonel Shafiq had helpfully fast-tracked. The carpenters, all local Egyptians hired for the job, were building a massive, intricate series of crates. These crates were, in fact, self-contained, ventilated holding bays, concealed beneath a raised false floor. Elias was everywhere. He measured the spaces himself, using his own body as a guide. "No, no, Habibi," he would chide the foreman. "The padding must be thicker. This is a 10th century piece. It cannot breathe the river air." He was, in fact, installing a crude but effective ventilation system, a series of baffled tubes that would look like structural supports, drawing air from hidden intakes just above the waterline. He oversaw the packing materials, hundreds of blankets, water bottles, and medical kits, all hidden inside barrels labeled varnish or linseed oil. This was the most dangerous phase. He was exposed. He was managing a large-scale logistical operation in broad daylight. A single suspicious foreman, a single curious policeman, and the entire house of cards would collapse. His protection was Colonel Shafiq. The Mukhabarat had quietly, unofficially, secured the perimeter of the dock. Not to help Elias, but to protect the Mukhabarat's investment. Shafiq wanted to ensure his Swiss partner's cargo, the cargo he was selling them, was not damaged. On the final day, Elias brought in the last element, a Mawlid, a local religious celebration. He donated a large sum to the local imam to celebrate the blessing of his voyage, staging a massive street festival on the roads leading to the dock. That night, the streets of Old Cairo were filled with music, lights, and thousands of celebrants. It was the perfect cover. It blocked the roads, deafened the ears, and provided a chaotic, joyful screen for the darkest of transactions. Under the cover of the Mawlid's fireworks, the operation began. The Wakala in Al-Darb al-Amar was buzzing. General Fawzi, his money secured, was a jovial host. He told his men they were moving to a palace in Libya and that their prisoners were being sold to another revolutionary group. At Otu Sark, the main gate of the compound opened. A convoy of 5 vehicles emerged. 2 were black Mukhabarat sedans containing Colonel Shafik and his personal team. 3 were covered military-style trucks, loaned by Shafik's department. The 90 students, dazed, malnourished, and terrified, were brought out of the stables. They had been told nothing. They were blindfolded and loaded into the back of the trucks, packed tightly. They were human cargo. The convoy began its journey. This was the moment of maximum risk. Elias was not at the compound. He was not at the dock. He was at his post. He was disguised again, this time as a night watchman at a textile warehouse overlooking the main road connecting Al-Darb al-Amar to the river. From this dark perch, armed with a pair of binoculars and a shortwave radio, he was the operation's eye. He had 3 assets on the route: a bread seller with a broken-down cart, ready to block a road, a drunk, ready to start a fight with a police patrol, and a signalman stationed on a minaret. These were tripwires to delay or divert any unplanned interference. The Mawlid celebration was winding down, and the streets were slick with confetti and debris. The convoy, led by Shafik's car, moved at a steady pace. Suddenly, a new element: a police checkpoint. It wasn't Mukhabarat. It was regular, local shurta. A fat police captain, perhaps looking for bribes from the festival goers, had decided to set up a roadblock. Elias's blood ran cold. This was not on the plan. This was chaos. The lead police officer, unaware he was stopping the head of the Mukhabarat, swaggered up to Shafik's window with his flashlight. From his perch, Elias could only watch. He saw the brake lights. He saw the flashlight beam. He saw Shafik's window roll down. The conversation was inaudible, but the body language was a scream. The police captain was arrogant. Shafik was, for a moment, still. Elias put his hand on his radio. If Shafik was compromised, if a firefight broke out, the mission was over. The students in the trucks would be the first casualties. Then he saw Shafik's door open. The colonel stepped out of the car. He was in his civilian suit, but he moved with absolute authority. He didn't shout. He simply presented his identification. The police captain's arrogance evaporated. Elias watched the man's posture collapse. He went from a rooster to a feather. He saluted. He waved the convoy through with frantic, apologetic gestures. Elias let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. The convoy continued. It passed the bread seller. It passed the drunk. It arrived at the cordoned-off dock. The Mawlid was over. The fireworks were done. The only sound was the heavy, lapping water of the Nile. The dock was illuminated by harsh, temporary floodlights. The 2 barges sat low in the water, their massive crates open to the night air. Colonel Shafik stood on the pier, smoking a cigarette, a picture of bored authority. General Fawzi was there too, flanked by his 2 bodyguards, his new Libyan passport burning in his pocket. He was impatient, eager to get to the airport, where a private plane, also arranged by Shafik, was waiting. Elias was there too, but he was invisible. He was Yusef Kabani, the terrified merchant, wringing his hands and chain-smoking. "Quickly, quickly," he urged the workers. "Handle the altarpieces with care." The students were unloaded from the trucks. Their blindfolds were removed. They blinked in the harsh light, confused, weak. They saw Egyptian soldiers, Fawzi's men, and Egyptian police, Shafik's men. Many began to weep, believing this was their execution. Elias had to act. He walked up to a young woman, an Israeli student who was shaking uncontrollably. As Yusef, he approached her. He didn't speak Hebrew. He didn't dare. He spoke to her in English, his voice the smooth, calming baritone of the Coptic merchant. "Do not be afraid, my child," he said, pressing a bottle of water into her hands. This is a delicate artifact. You are being moved. Be silent. Be still. God is with you." The student looked at him, confused. He met her gaze. He couldn't smile. He couldn't reassure her. But he could be calm. He was the one thing in this nightmare that wasn't shouting. He then turned to Shafiq's men. "Please, Colonel, your men must help. These pieces must be loaded with reverence." The students were guided one by one into the hidden compartments of the barges. 90 souls, packed into the darkness beneath the false floor, in the belly of Yusef Kabani's ark. The loading took 2 hours. It was a silent, desperate operation. Finally, the last student was inside. The carpenters, supervised by Yusef, sealed the false floors. They nailed down the heavy wooden planks and then, for authenticity, began placing actual, worthless crates of pottery and stone on top of the sealed hatches. By Oroforkrau, the barges looked exactly as they should, like 2 cargo vessels loaded with low-grade antiquities. General Fawzi clapped Shafiq on the back. "A pleasure doing business, Colonel. Egypt is yours. I prefer the sand of Libya." He and his men were driven away, toward the airport and out of Israeli history. Shafiq turned to Yusef. The Coptic merchant was sweating, his fine silk shirt stained. He looked like a man who had just lost a fortune, or made one. "Your friends in Switzerland will be pleased, Yusef," Shafiq said, the corner of his mouth twitching. "The merchandise is on its way." "Thank you, Colonel," Elias panted. "You have saved my business." "See that you remember it," Shafiq said. He lit one last cigarette, looked at the barges, and drove away. Elias was alone on the dock, with a 2-man crew he had hired, a river rat captain and his son, both paid handsomely to ask no questions and pilot the barges to Alexandria. He untied the final rope himself. The barges groaned and drifted into the center of the dark, ancient river, beginning their slow, 140-mile journey to the sea. The journey to Alexandria was a 48-hour nightmare. Elias was not on the barges. His place was in Cairo. He was the guarantor of the deal, and he was Shafiq's property. If he vanished, Shafiq would know he'd been tricked and could recall the barges. So Elias returned to his shop. He opened it. He sold textiles. He drank tea with merchants. He lived the life of Yusef Kabani, while, in his mind, he was floating on the Nile, in the dark, with 90 souls. The barges were a dumb target. They had no radio. They were just 2 of 100 other vessels on the river. The plan was simple: float and pray. The real danger was in Alexandria. The barges were scheduled to arrive at a commercial dock. There, Yusef Kabani's shipping agent, another Mossad cutout, would inspect the cargo, declare it unfit for sea travel, and order it moved to a private holding dock for repairs. This private dock was the exfiltration point. But 24 hours into the barge journey, Elias had a visitor. The small bell above his shop door chimed. Colonel Shafiq entered. He was not in uniform. He was in a simple linen suit. He looked like a customer. Elias's heart hammered against his ribs, but his face remained the impassive mask of Yusef. "Colonel," Elias smiled, a surprise. "Can I offer you some tea? I have a new shipment from Ceylon." "No tea, Yusef," Shafiq said, browsing the silks. "I am restless. Your shipment has caused me a headache." "A headache? Colonel, I pray there is no issue. The paperwork was immaculate," Shafiq interrupted, running a fine Kashan rug through his fingers. "The problem is General Fawzi. His plane was delayed indefinitely." Elias said nothing. "It seems," Shafiq continued, his back to Elias, "that the Libyans were not as eager to welcome a hero as we thought. A tragic mix-up at the border. He and his men, they resisted. It was very messy." Elias understood. Shafiq had him killed. He had tied up the loose end. He had taken Fawzi's $5 million and his own. He had made a $10 million profit. "That is terrible news," Elias said, his voice flat. Yes, Shafik said, turning to face him. And it leaves me with a problem. You, Youssef. You are the only other person who knows about the Swiss, about the brokerage. You are my last loose end. The shop was silent. The air was thick. This was the true test. Colonel, Elias said, his voice dropping, you mistake our relationship. I am not a loose end. I am an asset, a very, very grateful asset, who values your protection more than ever. He walked to his safe, hidden behind a rug. He opened it. He took out a small velvet-covered box. Your wife, Elias said, I believe is fond of lapis lazuli. This is a small token of my infinite gratitude for your partnership. Inside was a necklace, but underneath the false bottom of the box was a thick envelope. It contained $50,000 in U.S. currency, Elias's emergency buyout fund. Shafik looked at the box, at Elias, and then back at the box. He took it. Your partners, the Swiss, Shafik said. They must be very wealthy. They are, Colonel, and they are always looking for new opportunities. Shafik nodded, satisfied. He saw Youssef not as a threat, but as a golden goose, a future source of income. Good. See that they are. This altar of St. Mark. I expect it to arrive in Greece without incident. It will be a miracle, Colonel. A miracle you yourself have performed. Shafik smiled, a real, genuine smile. He had his man. Good day, Youssef. When the bell chimed again, Elias collapsed onto a stool. He had bought his life. He had bought the barge's passage. And he had just laundered the Mukhabarat's murder of General Fawzi. The port of Alexandria is a different world from Cairo. It smells of salt, diesel, and Europe. It is a city of exits. The two barges arrived at dawn, anchoring in the polluted water chaos of the commercial harbor. As planned, the shipping agent met them, threw a theatrical fit about the unseaworthy state of the vessels, and, with a few well-placed bribes, also Mossad money, had the barges rerouted to a private, derelict dock in the western harbor. This was the signal. 20 miles out, in the blackness of the international waters, the Helvetic maritime salvage ship was waiting. It was not a salvage ship. It was the INS Mivtah, a Sa'ar 4-class missile boat. Alongside it floated two unmarked Zodiac commando boats. The men on board were not Swiss. They were Shayatet 13, the Israeli naval commandos. This was Operation Sacred Weave. At Or 11, the barges were secure at the private dock. The river captain and his son were paid, given a bonus, and told to disappear for 24 hours. A single truck, posing as a port sanitation vehicle, pulled up to the dock. The Shayatet 13 team, dressed as Egyptian dock workers, emerged. They were not Youssef's carpenters. They worked with silent, brutal efficiency. The planks were pried up. The false floors were opened. Light, for the first time in 48 hours, flooded the dark compartments. The 90 students were alive. They were dehydrated, sick, and disoriented, but they were alive. The commandos didn't speak. They didn't explain. They simply moved. They formed a human chain, lifting the students out, one by one. They were not rescued. They were extracted. They were moved from the barges to the Zodiacs and ferried, in the darkness, out to the waiting missile boat. The entire operation, the movement of 90 people, took less than 30 minutes. It was a silent, ghostly transfer. By 01:30, the INS Mivtah was powering away from the Egyptian coast, its engines low, its profile hidden. By 02 Sao, the Shayatet 13 dock workers had replaced the false floors. They had resealed the crates. They had loaded the worthless pottery back on top. When the sun rose, the two barges were still at the dock, looking exactly as they should, two vessels waiting for repair. The altar of St. Mark had, in effect, vanished into thin air. 3 days later, the INS Mivtah slipped into Haifa harbor. There was no press, no welcoming committee. The 90 students were taken off the boat and immediately transferred to a military hospital. They were home. The official story, released a week later, was a masterpiece of geopolitical fiction. A group of 90 Israeli students, lost during a desert expedition in the Sinai, have been miraculously found, safe and sound. The government thanks the international partners who aided in their search. No mention of Cairo, no mention of Fawzi, no mention of Shafik. The silence was total. Back in Cairo, Youssef Kabani opened his shop. The day was hot, the air still. He was a man waiting for a verdict. He had heard nothing. The barges were found in Alexandria, empty. The altar was declared stolen by port thieves. Colonel Shafik was furious, and Youssef was devastated. He had lost his fortune. His grief was so convincing that Shafik, in a moment of grotesque generosity, even forgave Youssef's failure and hinted that more opportunities would soon present themselves. The hook was set. Youssef Kabani, the failed merchant, was now Shafik's permanent indebted asset. Elias was trapped. He was more a prisoner than ever. On the 10th day, a delivery boy arrived at his shop. He was not carrying textiles. He was carrying a single, long-stemmed red rose in a simple glass vase. Elias took it. His hands did not shake. The boy left. Elias looked at the rose. It was the all clear, the mission complete. 90 souls. Home. He, Youssef Kabani, had just lost his life savings in a failed smuggling attempt. He was financially ruined and now indebted to the Mukhabarat. He, Elias Niven, had just pulled off the single greatest extraction in Mossad history. He had rescued 90 captives from the heart of an enemy capital without firing a shot, using only his wits, his cover, and $10 million. He was a failure. He was a hero. He placed the red rose on the counter of his shop, next to a bolt of blue Coptic linen, and he waited for his next customer. The story of Elias Niven, the hidden guardian, does not end with a parade. It does not end with a medal. It doesn't end at all. Elias Niven died in Cairo. Youssef Kabani lived for another 15 years. He became a fixture of the Cairene landscape, a man of quiet sorrows and impeccable taste. He continued his partnership with Colonel Shafik, acting as a minor, harmless funnel of information and black market luxuries. He became so trusted by the Mukhabarat that he was, in effect, untouchable. He was the perfect spy. A man hidden in plain sight, a man whose cover was his prison. He never returned to Haifa. He never saw his family again. He read about the Camp David Accords in the Al-Ahram newspaper, sitting in his usual spot at the Café El Fishawi. He watched the world he had helped to shape, from the inside of a cage he himself had built. The 90 students he saved went on to live their lives. They became doctors, lawyers, teachers, and parents. They never knew the name Youssef Kabani. They never knew the story of the Coptic merchant who had built them an ark. To them, it was a miracle. Heroism, we are taught, is a trumpet blast. It is the raid, the battle, the flag raised. But the most profound heroism is often a whisper. It is the work of the hidden guardian. It is the infinite, agonizing patience of the weaver. It is the Katsa who lives a 20-year lie to save one life, or 90. Elias Niven was that man. He was the guardian who could never go home, the savior who had to live with the ghosts of the lives he couldn't save, and the silence of the 90 he did. His victory was absolute, and his sacrifice was total. He saved 90. He lost one, himself. The mission is complete, but the intelligence gathering never stops. Subscribe to Cinematic Intel to declassify your next operation.